Hello and welcome to the Novel Creature Network. I'm your host, Montrez, and we are back with one of my amazing writer friends, the talented, the amazing, epic fantasy author, Amena Jamali. You are doing your thing. You've got epic stories, thick, luscious, beautiful worlds for us to devour. So it's a pleasure to be able to chat with you in person and to share all the awesomeness you've got going on. But I'm going to get out the way and we're going to dive right into just like everything that you've got going on because it's awesome. So, what is your author origin story?
I would say that the earliest ambition I've ever had in my life was to be an artist and a scientist at like the age of 7. And then after that became author. So I've always wanted to be an author, and for a while there, high school, college, I never thought I could be because, well, it doesn't take a lot of thinking to figure it out. It just never really sit for me that someone like me could be a published author, that anyone would have an interest in publishing my books and reading my books and buying them. Just, it never sat for me. And there's also, depending on a person's background, can understand that there's not always the most positive support for these artistic endeavors in certain communities. So I received a lot of pushback for this strange non-STEM kind of dream that I had. And it is true that along the way I did decide to go into STEM. I have a bachelor's in political philosophy and a master's in cybersecurity, and I did decide to go into cybersecurity. But this is where I think this is true of a lot of people these days. The pandemic was a kind of a reset, think really about what I want in the world kind of feeling. So what carried me through those first few months, the culmination of my master's program, which was so much more underwhelming than I thought it would be, just that whole stew of uncertainty and anger and frustration. What carried me through that was actually this story. So in some ways, it's a pandemic story. In some ways, the story has been around for pretty much as long as I've been writing. So let's say the age of 10, it's been around for that whole time, but it's also, it's new, it's old and it's new. It's all my ideas ever, plus certain specific ideas I started to think through and put together after college. It's just all of the above for me.
And that really resonates. A lot of the authors that come on here, a lot of the creatives I talk to, I think we all kind of started around that period where the world was shut down. It's like everything was burning, and we had time to like really sit and assess what we wanted to do with our lives and the times that we had, because a lot of us didn't know. It was such an uncertain time, and so we definitely, I say this every episode, but we need a name for like our generation and like our movement of writers, because it's definitely something that I'm seeing a pattern for, and I think it deserves to be talked about and credited for our time period. The things I want to note is that you always kind of wanted to be a writer, but you didn't think that you could. The pushback that we find in the arts, and just even in the way that we see ourselves, from how people kind of respond to us and how they define us, like the pushback that you see in education and in our society, like the constant devaluing of art and literature, and how much work goes into that and how important it actually is. Really drop some gems, and here, I always want to remind people that the stories we live and the ones that we read, they really can save and transform our lives. And that's what you've shown us, just like with telling us your author origin story.
So I find what you're saying, that it really captures the essence of what I feel, because I've seen that in someone else. So one of my most favorite author moments, like since I started on this journey, really set forth on it, is this moment. It's now a couple of years ago. It was October 2022, and I was attending a small little event put on by my community in Houston for selling the work of women entrepreneurs. And it was a little event. I wasn't expecting to sell a lot of books. Didn't sell that many, but what this moment that came out of it was just worth it. It was basically worth, in a sense, going to all of this trouble of polishing up my work for being published. There was this girl there who told me that meeting me was the best day of her life. And it was on the basis of me being a woman of color, a Muslim woman who was wearing religious dress, who had put already by that point 2 books into the world, and could say that, yes, this is something I have done, and holding that in my hands and presenting it to her. And afterwards, she definitely came back and told me that my books were amazing, and I was an amazing author and all of those things. But those words specifically, I thought about that all the way home, and I was just like, when it was me at that age, it never even occurred to me that that was possible, that a girl who looked like me, who would wear clothes like mine, could even think of actually, like both the public facing publishing a book and the internal facing writing so well that it could mean something to someone. That didn't even occur to me because it was just not possible. And for that to be possible for someone else, like, it was just the most beautiful moment.
That's awesome. That's amazing to hear. So along those lines, what do you feel is your creative superpower?
I think it's taken me a long while to get to this conclusion. But what I love most about my own writing is the way that the words sort of flow together, that they build upon each other. They're not disjointed, and they just, it's like eating like some, I want to compare it to ice cream, but it's not just that, because ice cream can be really sugary and not very filling. So I would rather say it's sort of like the most delicious pie. And I mean this for myself, actually. Coming together, it's like all like the perfect blend of flavors that's just been put together with so much thought and feeling. And when I read it, I think that, hey, I'm on this journey of words that's just sweeping me off to somewhere else. And it's taken on one side a lot of skill to make that happen, a lot of thought about how I was using words, how I was building sentences, using images. It's taken a lot of work to reach that point. But on the other side, I can't believe that it actually came out of my own hands and my own lips. Like, how could that happen, that it just flows so beautifully? So I would point to that as my creative superpower. There are definitely things that I feel like I could improve upon, things about imagery and things about certain aspects of characters. There's always stuff to improve upon. I think I do many things very well, but I could improve. But this thing, that it just, the words are like the perfect blend of flavors.
Awesome. And I think I just want to note that, like, I love how, a lot of times we're very self-deprecating as a creative. We look at all the ways that we can be better. When people give us compliments, we kind of downplay. But I love that you're able to have confidence in your work, and especially the amount of work that you put into it. Because you're not just dropping like 100 pages, 200 pages. You are dropping epic fantasy with fully fleshed out worlds and like amazing backstories and all of that. So I'm just curious, how long does it take you on average to write these books and to go through the whole process?
So it's kind of a really widely varied thing, because I would say that for one thing, I'm a slow writer. I do not put out that many words an hour. I would say, like, in an hour, if it was a really good hour, I'd probably put out 700 words. And I know authors who put out like 10,000 words. So I am pretty slow. It might take me the whole day to write a chapter of 2,500 to 3,000 words. And I mean the whole day, meaning like I put like 6 to 8 hours solid into that particular chapter. Like I had nothing else to do. It was a weekend, it was a holiday. I put in a lot of time to make a single chapter happen. So I don't write that fast. Um, with that being said, each book I think takes me a different amount of time. So my prequel, The Way It Would Become, 274 pages or so. It was maybe 9 months of writing. It took a while for me to put this stuff together. For The Reverend's Chosen Book 2, I think it was a solid 3 years to put all of the material together because it took me a long while to think things through. So I'm a slow writer, but the slowest part is that I need time to put my ideas together to figure out exactly what my characters are doing. There's the outline, yes, but there's a lot of pre-work, a lot of pre-thought that goes into each chapter before it's written. And then there is a lot of sort of continuous self-editing, I would kind of say. Like I might be looking through my own stuff and just editing a little bit, making adjustments here or there before it ever sees my editor. Because, I mean, okay, it's not good to be a perfectionist, but I really do like to put out quality work. So I pre-work, a lot of time in the drafting, editing after, and then all of that before it even goes to my editor. And then after that point, I would say it probably takes maybe sometimes 3 months, sometimes 6 months to actually publish the book, depending on how much my editor actually had to work with. If I did a really good job, they don't have to work that much, but maybe 3 to 6 months from hitting the end on the draft, or I don't actually write the end, but saying that the draft is done between that time and the actual publication.
So a lot of work goes into this. And you said, and I just want to clarify, it took you 3 years to like put the whole, like all the world building and the prep together
for book 2 specifically.
Wow. I mean, it's just definitely you can feel that this is a labor of love and the stories that you're crafting and creating. And so, yeah, wow. I don't know how long it would take me. You say you're a slow writer. I don't know how long. I've never done an epic book before, but wow. I'm sorry, I'm fangirling a little. That's amazing. But what is your creative kryptonite? What challenges have you faced and how do you deal with them?
So I think my kryptonite is not one that's especially rare. It's the imposter syndrome issue that it kind of for me specifically, it stems from the fact that I know my books are not the most popular topic. They have this heavy dose of faith. They're not especially romance heavy. There's romance in them, but it's nowhere near enough to justify the typical cover of, that's used in fantasy with like the male and female lead together. I mean, my books have more POVs than just that. So it's that kind of comparison issue between my work and the work that I see. Like the author publishes it in October, and by before the next October, it's already had hundreds of reviews and so many followers. And I'm just like, this is just your debut? Like, I've been doing this a lot longer and I do not have that much reception. So it's that feeling of, hey, is anyone reading? And then when people read, a lot of my reviews either come back to be, and I don't only mean the ones that are written online. I mean, even the ones that are told to me that it was, my least favorite. The English was too complicated. Or that I didn't like it because it was religious or faith-based. Or the people who tell me, from the very beginning that they kind of don't want to read it because it's faith-based or because they think that it's too Muslim faith-based. So it's that that kind of negative reception. That kind of turns to be my kryptonite. So there are definitely days when I'm sitting down to write and I'm thinking about all of those different little moments, reading something online, hearing something being said. I'm just like, okay, but I'm going to put in all this work. Like, it's going to take me a long while to just write this chapter. Is it really worth me putting in all this effort to write this chapter? And I then start to think, well, my cure for that is it's first taking some time and space, maybe going and reading something else that's completely unrelated, like a completely different genre, maybe watching some TV in another genre, but then also remembering that even if no one read my books, I'm writing for the sake of my characters. That on the most intimate level, it's for them. So I want to know what happens to my characters in this coming chapter. It's actually important to me to see where they will be at the end of the 3,000 words I'm about to write. And that has a way of pulling me forward. And then I start to remember as I'm writing and enjoying my own writing, I remember all the people who actually have enjoyed my writing, for whom if I didn't end up publishing the next book, it would actually be a tragedy. And those two things together, they make the less than positive reception bearable. And then some of it is also, I would also add at the tail end, that the practical understanding that my books are simply not for everyone. Most books are not for everyone, and mine most certainly aren't. And if there's someone who it's not for them, well, I at least have to remember that, hey, my books did reach their hands. So there's something I'm doing that it was right enough for it to actually reach someone's hand, even if they didn't enjoy it. So it's kind of all of those things together. And I also have to say that one of the things I remember quite a bit is the meme of people complaining about J.R.R. Tolkien describing the tree at the beginning of The Lord of the Rings. And I'm just like, and I'm my own frustration sometimes with the work that I absolutely adore. I'm like, if that can be true of that book, which is a masterpiece beyond time, then I think I got to cut myself a little bit of slack. Like, I think I'm definitely fulfilling at least my own very exacting expectations. So, do I have to really fulfill everyone else's? Like, at least I'm doing my own part by myself.
Definitely. And I think when you couple in the fact that you're putting forth, like the best effort that you can, and you're putting your all into this, if you're doing your best and you're telling the story, your authentic story, that's what matters. It's going to find its audience. It's going to find its reader. And just like the reader that you saw at that event you were at, that's, if you can, like, that one person, like, that's something that you can remember over and over and realize that it's probably not going to stop with just one person. There's somebody else out there that, again, their eyes are going to light up. So
this is definitely true.
But you touched on something, and I thought this was really cool because this is kind of like your tagline on your social media, and it really sticks out. I love the combination of how you say that your books have faith, feminism, and magic. And I want to especially say that, like, when you mix the faith and feminism, that's something that's not always seen. So how do you blend faith, feminism, and magic together in your stories?
So I think that it's a little difficult to explain. So just bear with me a couple of minutes as I explain what went into that. So I came up with that tagline after The Bell Tolling was published. Sometime later, I thought to myself that, okay, so as I'm pitching my book to all of these different people that I'm encountering, what are the things that I'm saying in general to people, and how can I use that? And I came up with these 3 words. So magic, of course, the epic fantasy aspect. There's, of course, magic in my story. It's everywhere. I do love writing about magic. All the different ways to make that a very real part of the world, putting some of my technology background, my understanding of cybersecurity, and then drawing on the people around me, their understanding of science, of physics, things like that to make it robust. So I do love that part. The faith and feminism is more the idea that's more intimate, more personal to me. So just as you said, Montrez, one of the things that that growing up I faced as a Muslim girl in the United States was, how do I reconcile my being a woman, my belief in the power of women, with the things that are said about Islam, with the things that are said about the role of women in faith, period? How do I reconcile those two things? And I had a lot to face in this area, a lot of bullying, even a lot of many extremely harrowing, soul-searching moments throughout my adolescence. That how do I reconcile all of these things? How can I reconcile the portrayal of Muslim women in Western media at times with the fact that, hey, actually, at heart, I'm happy to wear my religious dress. I find it freeing, actually. And if it wasn't for the media portrayal, I wouldn't actually have any issues as a person, I mean, in my own heart. So something that started coming out in the writing I did on the side in college was, what would it look like if you could actually see a divine figure being feminist? And this is at the same time that I started to resolve a number of my own conflicts with that kind of understanding, that in my own personal belief, that I think that faith is at its core, when properly understood, feminist. I think that it is about women's power. It's just that that message gets lost in translation in most cases around the world. So this is just my belief. A person doesn't have to agree with it, but it is my belief that faith is supposed to be feminist. So from there, I kind of went towards, well, I want to see that. I have this idea, yes. There are elements of Islamic theology I could point to, Christian theology even, that I could be like, okay, well, you see that it has this particular understanding here beneath the surface, but I want to see it on the surface. I don't want there to be some sort of medium, some sort of lens of understanding I have to put on. I need to see it. And so that's where a number of the elements of my story came up. So the one of the most poignant moments is how my main character, Lucian, how he treats the women around him, how he treats his female companions, Malika and Arista, how he treats the women he encounters who need some support, and contrasting that, because I have the villain inflict the worst kinds of violence upon women, because that to me is what it looks like when that idea of faith and feminism is abused. So I very intentionally put those two ideas in contrast, side by side, opposed. That this is what the villain does. He is the abuser, because that's what abuse is, abusing the ideas of faith and women, and women's role in society. And then my hero, how he brings these ideas together in harmony. And so there is this treatment, but there is also, he makes sure that he empowers his female companions to do things on par with him and even surpass him. So one of my favorite moments from the bell tolling is when he tells Malika that I want you to be more than me. And it's just incredible, because that's usually not how male heroes in fantasy are. That's not how male portrayals of faith are. So a little bit of more background about myself. This is the kind of understanding I have from my father, who is a man of faith and very feminist in his own right. Mm-hmm. And I put that into this character to make it very immediate, that this divinely blessed character has this much respect for women. And for him, it is not an extraneous to faith kind of matter. It is a part of his faith. And so this kind of naturally worked its way into that sequence: faith, feminism, and magic. So just one final point about this. I have had questions about two of these elements. That what does magic have to do with those first two elements? And how is it actually feminist? Because there is no feminine rage component as such to my story. So for those two elements, in a way that my hero's power, the way that he goes about expressing his magic, it ties back to first his faith, but also his power is about, in some very subtle portrayals about his respect for women, because he ties those things together. Just as the villain, he draws power from abusing women. So both my hero and my villain, they go on the opposite sides of that. And then finally about, well, it's not feminine rage, so how is it feminist? So my way of going about this was to show a world where women are rulers, and this is just a naturally understood part of society. It's not controversial to have a woman be the second in command of the quest. It's not controversial to have a woman governor, a woman commander. It's not, frankly, controversial for the villain to have female soldiers and commanders in his army, because women, it's just obvious. They're just, yeah, of course they're in power. And it's because it's so natural, that's where it puts forward that feminist element, that hey, it's natural. Because as someone who studied politics, it was really important to me to see women in power, that being natural and well understood. And you know, even today that's not so easy to find. But in my books, women are in power, and it's just a natural part of the world.
And I think you've hit a lot of things. And one of the things that I push and I try to really amplify is that I don't think any type of representation or diverse element is a monolith. So feminism can be expressed and portrayed through a different lens. It's not always the same. And I love how you, in your work, you make it just an everyday thing. You just naturally display what that looks like. And it's just, as somebody who's beta read some of your work, it was just amazing to see. And then how you incorporate faith into that. And, you did talk about the magical elements and how you interweave it all so beautifully. And I think it's something that universally we can all enjoy, no matter what faith you're part of. There's something inspiring. You read the words that you have in the stories that you have, it really resonates in a way that says, you know what, I can apply some of this to my everyday life. And and I also want to note that, like, even though feminism is a strong element in your story, you also have these nuances that even, it's not just about the women. You have like all these amazing, great character journeys for all of your characters. You had aspects in there for several of the male presenting main characters that are just so well nuanced. You can really see like the discourse and kind of like the reflection, how reflective your work is, and exploring faith and feminism and the way like our world works through this expansive and like just immersive world that you've created with your fantasy.
It's been really important to me to create a male lead, Lucien, who is very much a man. He is a man, but he's also a man in all of the ways that a man can be a man, that he has tenderness to him, he has strength to him, he's firm, he's soft, he's caring, he's compassionate, he's a warrior, he has that laser eye, that laser warrior's focus. So I think that, so what you're saying, like, it resonates also so well with me, that if you're going to have a feminist presentation, there is value, I would say, to some of the more feminine rage material, but there is also a lot of value in showing that both men and women can just really across the spectrum can present feminist ideas, that it's not, it's like all the sides of that that topic. And
Definitely. And I think the beauty in that too, again, is that you're seeing it through a different lens. Like we need all of that. We need all of that. And I think what your brand of feminism does, what your lens, your perspective on it does, is show just how needed it is to be able to have an equal footing and a respect for women and men, what happens when we can work together and what the
Mhm.
society looks like. I think, again, your work is a beautiful dialogue that challenges our perspective, our thinking, the way we see ourselves, the way we see others, because you even talk about like aspects of power. Power is a big part and what that looks like. One of the beautiful things that I saw and that really resonated when I was reading your work was how you talked about power in a way where I think it was Arista. She was seeing herself as fearful and coward, and I'm always scared, and I'm healing from these things. I'm not strong. I can't do this. And the beauty in seeing a character recover from traumatic experiences and just
Mhm.
like the things that we go through in life, and seeing how that's actually a strength to be able to be vulnerable, to be able to recover and keep going, to be able to face your fears and the things. There's just so many beautiful elements and messages to your work. It's so beautiful. And you look at this book, you're like, oh, wow, it's 600 pages, but every chapter is gold. So I want to give you your flowers on all that you're doing, all the work that you're putting out there. It's
Thank you.
amazing and it definitely deserves all the hype and love that it can get.
Thank you
Just
so much.
but with that, we've talked kind of about the themes and some of the characteristics of your work, but you've got a really massive and amazing world. So take us on a tour of your world. When you think epic fantasy, we normally think like Lord of the Rings, Chronicles of Narnia,
Mhm.
things like that. But what does your world or the worlds that you're creating, because you have some other works as well as the Lord of Freedom series, which we've been talking about. But take us on a tour of those worlds and what we can expect.
So the Lord of Freedom series is my biggest project. Probably going to be my biggest project for a lot longer to come. Um, it is a massive undertaking because when it's supposed to be complete, it will have 7 main series books. So 6 sequels falling to the bell tolling. It will have 5 prequels, 7 complements to the main story. So like a volume of bonus chapters and behind the scenes chapters for each of the main series books, and at least a couple of spin-offs because some of my side characters are clamoring for their own story at this point. So for some visual examples, so here's my prequel, The Way It Would Become. So the prequels are all the stories of my 5 main characters' parents. So this is Malika's parents, currently published already. It has a audiobook format, a Spanish edition format. Yeah, it's like as much as I can make it, and it's already available. So then after that, in series order, is the bell tolling. And yeah, okay, it's resolving correctly. So this is the bell tolling. This is the bell tolling is 628 pages, but keep in mind that the last 30, 40 pages almost is appendix material. So I'm going to just take what Mantra said. It seems like a long book, but it does get really engaging when one gets into it. It introduces my characters and is the first part of their reconquest of the world of Isilia. So it has to be 7 books because Isilia is 7 nations, and I don't know whether it's showing up. Yes, okay, reasonably well. So Isilia has 7 nations, and that's why it really made sense to have 7 main series books. Alongside that is the complement, the resonant bell. So the resonant bell it complements the bell tolling by having behind the scenes chapters. So there's certain battle chapters in the bell tolling that this tells other perspectives for. It's also, I would say, it dives quite a bit deeper into more deeply into the feminist aspects in a way that the bell tolling the bell tolling has a lot of it, has it, of course, but this book, it gives more time to diving into what that actually means for the world. So there was something that Montrez was saying about the different elements of power. So there's a couple, for example, in this book, Ciro and Bellona. Ciro is the count, Bellona is his wife, the countess, and there are quite a few scenes in here about how she is part of his mission and his story, but she's an equal partner in it. It's not that she's, she's his wife, she's just a subordinate. She's his partner, how he supports her, how she supports him, and how they both are working together for a better future for their children. And it's like the very motherly aspect of it, but it still is very clear that this is power. This isn't a sort of like domesticity kind of cult aspect that it makes it second place. Then there is actual book 2, as I like to call it, The Reverence Chosen. And this is my latest publication as of May. It will also have a complement, The Gifted Reverence, which, if all goes well, will come out in December. The Reverence Chosen gets deeper into the aspects of faith, especially because there is Montrez knows what I'm talking about. There's like a specific moment in the story where my character kind of becomes more than human. And this book gets into that kind of thing. And my favorite part of my books is that if you put the 2 books together, it will form a single image. So this is all very intentionally designed, and the next book will have the other half of Arista's face.
Like when we get the full collection, you've got like a full beautiful spread. And I love how when like you get covers and they kind of play off of each other, that's you can see the level of thought that goes into this, and it's so amazing.
It's also supposed to be a visually significant moment in the story, because the eventual image will be all 5 of my main characters standing side by side, with the sun rising behind them, or rather the sun emerging from the clouds. So across the image, you will see the sun emerging, and it makes sense because my characters often speak of the sun as emblematic of the meaning of freedom, of the freedom that they are with so much effort spreading in the world. So that's the Lord of Freedom series. I do have some other works that I'm working on. One is it's not really a prequel, but it's set in the same world of Basilia. It's sort of a Cinderella retelling that eventually I hope to publish sometime in the next couple of years, that gets into, it's actually more feminine rage actually than my other books. There's that, and then I might have some other actual The Lord of Freedom series prequels, so things covering what happens to Lucien's ancestors, more not just his parents, but like several generations prior, and covering the origins of the evil magic. So that's kind of in the beginnings at this point. And then I do have plans for one other series, solid plans, I should say, for a series that will be somewhat cybersecurity based. But at this point, all I can say is that it will be kind of, all I have really set for it is that it's going to be kind of a blend of cybersecurity and fantasy, and it's going to be a little strangely deceptive in that it will show cybersecurity concepts while through characters who appear to be normal but aren't really normal. So that's so I have that kind of stuff set for it, but it's not yet at the point that I can start drafting. So don't expect it anytime soon.
You're teasing
but it's
us.
coming.
I'm excited. So, and again, I love how you have a spectrum of feminism, how you show like these unique elements of it in ways that aren't often explored. And so I'm excited for all of that. And you are more than welcome to come back to the Novel Creature Network so we can talk about it. I'm really excited. And now like I'm really going to be watching for that cybersecurity one. I love how you infuse like all the elements of your, different elements of your life into your work. Um, I really love. Wow, that's exciting. So, guys, if you're not already, please follow Amina on all social media. Check out her website, subscribe, and add all her books to cart. You will not be disappointed. Again, one of the things I love about your world is that, it looks massive when you're holding like that thick book in your hand. I think there's this perception sometimes that with epic fantasy, it can be daunting because you've got like all these names and all these locations, you've got maps. So for somebody who's entering into the epic fantasy kind of genre for the first time, I highly recommend Amina's books because you get like all the beauty of it with kind of like a modern, like your voice, it has its own flair to it that really is relatable and impactful while still giving you that classic storytelling that you find in some of those epic fantasy masterpieces. So definitely check it out, guys.
It's definitely taken a lot of work to achieve that voice, I'll say that, but it's also that I think sometimes the impression of epic fantasy is that there's a lot that you have to learn. And yes, it's true of any work, it's also true of mine, but I do at least try to make the effort that someone who's entering into the bell tolling, they're figuring out what the world is around alongside my characters, because some of my characters don't know what their world is anymore. So as Malika is learning, oh, this is what the world is really, this is what's beyond my everyday survival and existence. So there is a chance to learn it alongside her. That as she learns that this is what Lucian is, this is his majesty, his power, how it applies to her, he's teaching her that. And so my characters, as they're learning magic, you can learn magic alongside them because they don't all know how to use magic. And as they learn, the reader can learn as well. And I wouldn't say that it's not a completely learning free experience. Like, yes, you must learn, you must remember things, you must pick it up. That is actually just a facet of the epic fantasy genre. But I have tried to make it as smooth as possible.
And you do a really good job of it because when I came into your world, it was really it was immersive. You could connect with the characters and their stories, and you wanted to know more about the world. And then so when you gave us like those extra details and all the different things, it was engaging where you wanted to know. And so again, guys, if you're looking to get into epic fantasy, this is where it's at. Amina is crafting some amazing worlds here. Now, with all of our episodes here, we have a novel creature question. And I wanted to do this question because I see you online, you sometimes post like celebratory treats, like pictures of your treats and like some of the snacks and the things that you have. And I saw like you mentioned on a couple, like, hey, this is kind of, self-care or celebratory thing, or I had a hard day, so I'm a, eat this delicious treat. And I just love the treats and stuff that you post. And just looking at the pictures sometimes puts me in a happy space and makes me want to go treat myself. But novel creatures out there, let us know what your favorite form of self-care are. How do you treat yourself? And this question is for you as well. How do you treat yourself, Amina?
I think that self-care is something that I struggle with. Being the overachieving, I really don't like that phrase, but it does also, even in its negative sense, describe me. So I have learned that for me, the best self-care is the mental space that comes with a little bit of TV/good book, and something delicious. So it's like mentally and physically engaging. It's like both of those things being triggered at just the right moment at the right time. And I might not be able to take like really fancy, stress-free vacations for myself. That's not
Right.
always possible. Um, it's not necessarily possible for me to end work at a reasonable hour every single day, so I can't exactly get off at 5 p.m. every day. I do work full time in cybersecurity, so and sometimes writing is both pleasure and pain. There are days where it is the self care that I have been looking forward to all day, and it's all I need. And then there are days in which that too stresses me out. So this is why I've come up with this combination of this, like, it can be really quick, it can be really, you can take some, you can make it, stretch it out, watch a longer movie or something, but both mentally and physically engaging. So, you know, there are definitely days that, like, at the end of the day, all I want is not books or anything. It's popcorn and some show that I actually like, and that gives me the space to then remember, hey, it is, I do want to write. This is what I want to write about. This is where I was before all of the stressful things occurred today. So let me go back to that. And that's if anyone is looking for something to try, that would be my thing. Something delicious and something mentally stimulating.
That's a recipe right there for self-care. I love that. I love that recipe right there. Something mentally stimulating, something physically, a physical treat. That's good right there. That could be like a pair of comfortable socks and a crossword puzzle. You know what I mean? I love
Yes.
that. It's beautiful. I'm going to shout out Satisfiction Book Box. We had them on earlier this month. Jolie, who runs Satisfiction Book Box, she highlights BIPOC authors and self-care items. So if you do want a little bit of a treat, she does it, I think, bi-monthly. Definitely go ahead and check her out, because you're supporting authors like me and Amena, and you are supporting your own self-care. You can read a good book and take a bubble bath or light a candle. So I definitely want to recommend that as well. But I love that. I love that recipe. So mentally stimulating and something like a physical treat. Love that. Dropping gems here. Now, with that, can you share reading recommendations for us? What's been good on your shelf lately?
Okay, so she's been on the show previously, but Tatiana Obe's Sister Samurai, that was definitely one of the highlights of my last couple of months.
Yes.
So I'm gonna put that one out there, even though people are already familiar with it, but I'm gonna put it out there. I did recently read Jess Drew's Bride of the Sun, which I found really interesting in a feminism standpoint. Definitely feminine rage, but also the other side of just wanting to be free and safe and comfortable. There is M.H. Woodscourt's. So I recently finished reading one of her series that I really enjoy, the Winter Veil, the Winter Veil series. So I really enjoyed that series, and I was like reading it, and this does launch me into reading her next books, but I'm going to recommend her books, all of her books. They are also the faith and the faith, magic, and also some feminism too. I really enjoyed Gillian Witt's Compass Points. That was more like total pleasure read because it was more romantasy. Just enjoying this like strong, competent female who's when she gets into the situation, she quickly figures out what she has to do, and she nudges everyone along on the path of saving their world. Just really enjoyed that. In general, I will always recommend indie authors. So if you can find any list of indie authors, check them out. Indie authors, they touch on subjects that aren't often found in fiction, and they're always coming up with new ways to do so. So There's definitely some on my list that will address chronic illness in a way that I think just I've never seen done. There are others that will address matters of faith in different and unique ways. So, general indie rec, putting that out there.
I love that. I love the love for the indie. Thank you. Those are awesome recs.
I do have one more to put out.
Mhm.
Linda Ling's The Origin Chronicles. So she published A Mid-Flight Vampire's Tale earlier this year. And I know she's coming out with her next one sometime later this year.
Mhm.
It's Chinese vampires. I mean, this is awesome. Oh yeah, and I should also put in a plug for B. Joyce's, come on, it's Moon Beetles. That's the name of the series. So also another POC, mental health awareness, all of those kinds of representations put together in a series. I mean, the mental health stuff, it really makes you truly think and grow about your own mental health. And one more, can I say one more?
Yes, please. We're all about the recs here.
Okay, so Sophie Johannes's Traces. That is another major mental health rec that I keep coming back to. I have not read her whole series, but some of that is because her books are they require so much introspection as you read them that it really becomes a true mental journey, that going through what her characters go through with regards to mental illness and autism and empathy and how to survive in a world that isn't very friendly. It's also one of the very few books I've seen that has an actual Muslim girl rep. So
Awesome.
definitely, I have to just put that one out there. And then, of course, I should recommend Montrez's Errant. So that is one of my top reads for this year. So I'm going to put that out there.
That means a lot coming from you, because your recs are like really great. Like I'm noting all of these.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the love. But man, those are great recs. So guys, get on this. We've got lots of books to read, and you've added like 20 more that we at least. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. So with your recs and with your shout outs, and I'm definitely, again, I'm noting some of those amazing authors to maybe come along and have a chat with us here. But how can we best support and celebrate your work?
I don't want to say it in the shallow sense. It's not really social media support that is the support that I would most appreciate. It's buying my books, obviously, reviewing them, but it's also reaching out to me. I have a pretty open inbox on social media. I mean, as long as it's like nothing creepy, I do respond to direct messages of all sorts. So what I would most appreciate beyond merely buying and reviewing the general things that authors ask for, it's reaching out and telling me that, hey, I love this moment. Hey, this character was my favorite. Hey, could you please make sure that you don't harm this character in the next book? Like, can you take care of them a little bit, please? That means a great deal. It's those moments I look back on and I remember whenever I remember both as a source of encouragement, but I also actually pay attention to which characters people don't want hurt, sort of, kind of, but I do pay attention. And also, if you do reach out and you ask me for spoilers, yes, I will give you spoilers.
So guys, just so you know, because I know there's been discourse about that, like readers and authors, how to interact. And I know even though I'm an author, I am a huge reading fangirl. And so sometimes I even get nervous to contact or to say, hey, I love your book. So it feels great to definitely put that out there.
It's definitely something I too feel that, okay, if I don't have a relationship with that author, how am I supposed to reach out and just put that in? Because, well, the internet can be a really weird and creepy place. I think though that as for me, Um, I have something of an ability to distinguish between what's creepy and what's not. And I do use the block button where necessary to protect my peace and my privacy. Um, for me, I guess it's kind of like my attitude about technology. In my mind, if it's on cyberspace, it can be compartmentalized when necessary. And when it's something good and positive and wonderful, it can be, the compartment can be opened and brought into my life. So with that kind of attitude, it I feel like I can say more openly that if readers were to message me, I would be able to handle it, be able to smile and enjoy the parts of it that they intend for me to enjoy and receive it the way that they want me to receive it. So, yes, I am definitely more open to DMs.
That's awesome. And I think you dropped some gems on that. Block button is your friend, and
Yes.
compartmentalizing and setting those online boundaries, because it can be a lot when, if people are coming at you a certain type of way. So I love that. Block button's your friend, compartmentalize. I'm
Hmm.
writing notes, dropping all kinds of gems today. And with that, can we have one more final gem? Can you leave us with a little bit of inspiration?
What can I say that I haven't already said? Um, I think that the best thing for me to say is something that's related to what I'm writing in book 3 um, about the meaning of courage. Since courage, so book 3, just not saying it for simply for the sake of promotion, but as context, it's supposed to be about the like the mortal and the divine aspects of courage, like how it appears in different people, different understandings, and oneself and one society. So I think I'm going to say that if there's something you're truly committed to, then when you have the safety and the assurance for it, that you shouldn't shy away from devoting the entirety of your being to it. So give it your heart, give it your body, give it your soul, give it your mind, give it everything you can, and see what comes from that. And I think that this is true of me and my books, and also me and my career, that I have given it as much of myself as I have the safety and assurance to do so. And I have found that both in my career and in my books that it results in beautiful things. Um, I think that a there is a certain kind of reservation that comes with half-heartedness, that what if it doesn't work out? And courage is about taking that risk of it not working out for the hope that it will. Um, and I think that this is especially true of the experience of minorities, that for one reason or another, we keep a little bit of ourselves back because the world has taught us that we must, that you can't go all into something because it may not work out. And it's not something to do in every situation. Not everything deserves it, frankly, but there are a few things that do. And in those things, it's important to pour the whole of ourselves into it for the hope of it working out exactly the way we want. So hopefully that was some really good inspiration, really good inspiration right there.
Oh man, drop gems. And I'm gonna say that, like, the beautiful way that you talked about that, like all that beauty translates in your books too, like just pure inspiration. And so thank you for your time. Thank you for letting us like explore your world. I'm excited to see all the books that are coming, and I'm excited to see like all the things, how everything develops. But that was amazing. And
Thank
just
you.
appreciate all of your time. To everyone watching, again, please follow, buy her books, and it's okay to slip into her DMs and her inbox. Just know if you're being creepy, you're going to get blocked. But But thank you so much for your time, for being with us. Thank you, everyone who's watching. Save, share, subscribe, and spread